All right, so you sent over a ton of stuff about worms.
Yeah.
And I gotta be honest, my first thought was, worms? Really?
Right.
Like, not the most exciting topic, is it?
Well, I can see why you might think that.
Yeah.
Most people just think of them as like, well, slimy and wriggly, right?
Exactly. But then I started going through all the articles and videos you sent,
Yeah.
and wow, I was so wrong.
You know, it's interesting. Even Charles Darwin, like way back in the 1800s,
Yeah.
he knew that worms were way more important than everyone thought. He actually said, no other animal has played so important a part in the history of the world as these lowly organized creatures.
Okay, now Darwin definitely knows more than me about, well, the history of life.
Right.
So where do we even start with worms? We've got earthworms, waxworms, bloodworms. It's like a whole world of, well, worms.
Let's start with the one everyone knows,
Yeah.
the earthworm.
Okay.
They might seem simple, but they're super important for healthy soil.
So they're more than just like worms in the dirt.
Oh, way more. When they dig through the ground, they aerate the soil, they loosen it up, they mix it all around.
Yeah.
They basically make the perfect environment for plants to grow.
Wow.
And get this, they've been doing this for 600 million years.
600 million years.
Yeah. They've survived 5 mass extinctions.
5. Dinosaurs couldn't even get through 1.
It really is amazing, isn't it? And all that work they do, it affects us directly.
Really?
Think about the food we eat, the clothes we wear. Almost everything we have relies on healthy soil. And earthworms are a big part of keeping that soil fertile.
Wow.
They're like these tiny little engineers working all the time to improve the ground's ability to hold and drain water.
So basically we should be thanking earthworms every time we, I don't know, eat a salad.
Pretty much.
I gotta admit, I never thought of it that way. Okay, so earthworms are like the unsung heroes of the soil.
That's a good way to put it.
What about those waxworms? I read they have a pretty strange diet.
They do. They eat wax, obviously. But that's not even the most interesting thing about them. In 2022, scientists found out that their saliva,
Yeah.
it has enzymes that can break down polyethylene plastic.
Wait, polyethylene, isn't that like the most common kind of plastic?
It is.
The kind that like never decomposes.
Exactly. It takes forever to break down naturally, hundreds of years.
Oh, wow.
But these wax worm enzymes, they can break it down at a molecular level.
So you're saying these little worms could be the key to solving our plastic problem?
It's a possibility.
That's amazing. So how does it even work? Do they just like munch on plastic like it's candy?
Not exactly. It's more like the enzymes in their saliva are like tiny scissors.
Okay.
They cut up those long chains of molecules that make polyethylene.
Huh.
It breaks the plastic down into smaller bits, much easier to deal with.
So are we talking like huge farms of waxworms chomping through our landfills?
Well, not quite. Scientists are working on making these enzymes in the lab,
Oh, okay.
so we can use them to get rid of plastic waste more efficiently.
Okay, so maybe no worm farms next to the recycling plant.
Right.
But it's still incredible that these tiny things could solve such a huge problem. So we've got earthworms taking care of the soil, waxworms maybe saving us from plastic. What about bloodworms? What makes them so special?
Bloodworms are small. They live in the mud at the bottom of the ocean,
Okay.
but they have a secret weapon. Incredibly strong jaws.
Strong jaws. On a worm, what do they even use those for?
To hunt, mostly, and to protect themselves. But what's really cool is what their jaws are made of.
What's that?
10% copper proteins, and they last the worm's entire life.
Their whole life. How long do they even live?
5 years.
5 years. For a worm, and their jaws stay strong that whole time.
Yep. And because of that, scientists are looking at those jaws for inspiration.
Inspiration. For what? Tiny helmets for the worms?
No. Think bigger scientists are studying them to design new building materials, like super strong concrete.
Hold on, so we're going from worms in the dirt to, like, revolutionizing construction? This is
It
crazy.
just goes to show that you can find inspiration in the most unexpected places.
So we started talking about worms, and now we're talking about saving the planet and building amazing things.
Okay.
It's like a whole new way of looking at the world.
And we've only just started.
I'm telling you, I'm looking at worms in a whole new light now.
It's amazing what a little knowledge can do, huh?
It really is. And it's not just about, like, what we can use them for, right? There's something bigger here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For, like, centuries, we've kind of thought of ourselves as separate from nature, you know? But the more we learn, the more we see how connected we are to everything on this planet, even the tiniest things.
So you're saying we can't just ignore those tiny things
Sure.
because they could hold the answers to our biggest problems.
Like those waxworms. What if instead of seeing plastic as trash, we saw it as food?
Food? For us?
No, well, maybe not for us, but for something.
You're losing me here.
What if we had, like, special reactors full of those enzymes, breaking down plastic waste and turning it into something useful?
Yeah.
A whole new way to recycle.
Okay, now that is pretty cool. And what about the bloodworms with their super strong jaws?
Yeah.
I still can't believe we could make concrete from, like, a worm's mouth.
It sounds crazy, but think what that could mean.
Yeah.
Buildings that are stronger, last longer, maybe even fix themselves.
Like in a sci-fi movie.
Exactly. But nature has already figured it out. We just have to learn from it.
It makes you think, what else is out there? What other amazing things are these creatures hiding?
That's what makes science so exciting, right? There's always more to discover.
It's kind of humbling, right?
Definitely.
We think we're so advanced, but nature has a million years head start.
Exactly.
So maybe we should be paying more attention to nature.
For sure.
But how do we do that? Like, it's easy to get caught up in our busy lives and forget about the bigger picture.
It starts with being curious, I think.
Okay.
Being open to learning, even from unexpected places.
Like worms.
Exactly. Like, have you ever actually watched an earthworm move through the soil?
Can't say I have.
It's pretty amazing how they get around, how they interact with everything.
You know what? Now I kind of want to go check it out.
See, that's the first step. Once you start paying attention, you start seeing the world differently.
You realize that even the smallest creatures have a role to play.
And a story to tell.
It's like we've been missing out on all this incredible stuff that's happening right in front of us.
It is. And who knows what we might discover if we just took the time to look.
Maybe the solutions to our biggest problems are, like, literally right under our feet.
It's possible.
This whole deep dive has been, well, eye-opening.
It's a new perspective.
It really is. So as we wrap up, what's the one thing you hope people take away from all this worm talk?
I hope they come away with a sense of wonder,
Mm.
you know, and maybe a little more respect for the humble worm.
I think that's a perfect takeaway. A little worm wisdom for the world. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. You know, it's pretty amazing to think that something as small as a worm could, like, change the way we see the world.
It really is humbling, isn't it?
It is. It makes you realize that every living thing has, a purpose.
Absolutely. And we can learn so much from them, even the creatures we might think are insignificant.
Like worms. So as we finish up this deep dive, what's the one thing you hope our listeners will, remember from all this?
I hope they'll keep that sense of wonder we were talking about.
Yeah.
That willingness to look beyond the surface,
And maybe even go explore their own backyards, see what they can discover.
Exactly. You never know what's out there waiting to be found.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of worms. It turns out there's a lot more to these little creatures than meets the eye.